So we have been ignoring one topic as we have been working through our classes, which is these public declarations that are in front of all our classes and data. I'm just going to cover 3 of the possible access modifiers right now in Java, and we are just going to cover these in regards to methods and to the data members. So what you are seeing here now is basically a way that we can specify how this method or this data can be accessed. And public is a way that we can specify that anyone can access this. You don't have to be part of this class. You don't have to any kind of special restrictions or special privileges in order to access this data. Now I can demonstrate what will happen if we take away this public, if we change this, and you can see what will happen here with this model number. So let's take a quick look at what the difference between public is and the other access modifier that I'm going to show you. Call it private. So we will leave the model number as public, and I will go into this hello world program, and we have our printer here that we created. We will delete this other printer, and notice that we can change the model number. I can access this. I can call my printer dot, and you can see that model number is visible here, and we can set this to new value. Now if I run this, you can see we have actually changed the model number. This is bad because we are able to reach inside of here and change this class's data. Really, the class itself should be responsible for its own data. Other people shouldn't be able to change its data. So we can change this so that that can't happen anymore by changing this from public to private. And now you will see that this code won't compile because this model number is not visible. You can't actually see the model number. Now if I hit dot here, you can see that on is still public, but model number has disappeared. Now this is the reason why we had created this method called get model number. What we had done here is given someone a way to get the model number without being able to modify the model number. And that's really the value of using an access modifier. So that basic access modifiers that you have are public and private and then protected. And we are not really going to cover protected right now. Protected is going to be used when we talk about inheritance, and it is a way to make it so that when you have another class that inherits from your class, it is able to access that data or that method. That concept isn't going to make much sense to us yet until we start talking about inheritance. So private simply makes it so that the only thing that can access this data or this method is the class itself. So you can only access it from inside the class. In this instance, we had seen that the model number was not accessible from outside. It gave us a compile error when we had set this to private. But you can see here that we are accessing the model number and changing it inside of our class. We don't get an error here, and that's because private allows us to have the visibility only from within our own class. There is also another type of access modifier which is called a default access modifier, and that's when we don't specify one, and that has a couple of special attributes, but we are not really going to get into that right now because we are going to try to keep this as basic as possible. And mostly what you are going to be using is public, private, and then protected. And really the general rule of thumb when creating data is that you want to make all your data private. And you only want to expose what you need to expose externally. We could also make methods private, and that would make it so that we could only call those methods from within our class. So let's take a look at a quick example of how we could do that. So let's take this print method and let's change it so that it is private. Now you can see that we can't actually call this print method specifying as a string to print from outside our class. If I went myPrinter.print, you see there is only one method showing up, but I could call this print method that takes a string inside of our class. So for example, in our print method here, we could call the other print method and pass in a string. Now what will happen is it will print out the isOwn value, the model number, and then it will print I can call this. So let's go ahead and run that and see what happens. And as you can see here, when we call print, it is called I can call this. So really an access modifier is a way to lock down your data or to expose your data in your classes.